This is a test. Alright, Andre, it's a good thing I checked my video because my microphone sucked and levels were terribly off, and it was also like 7 minutes long, which is also terrible. So I'm going to try and speed this one up a little bit and talk a lot less. So here's the updated collision system. We got collisions that are still working, whether we're doing, let me show the college again. So it says college and frigate, frigate to frigate. I did this using Hector's code because we do not, or excuse me, I do not have access to your video from the lecture from last quarter, which sucks because I basically had to rip Hector's code to make it work for my own and integrate it. It integrated properly, so that works, which is nice. Alright, so the way that it works is we have a collision processor collection, which is a list of either pair collision processes or self collision processes, which is established in whatever level the user creates and sets a pair or self collision test. Now, what that does is it pushes the collision group into an object, it pushes the object collision group into a list from the manager, from the manager right here. It puts that list, yes, a list of process collections, and that is based off, again, the object group, whether we're doing a self, which will only put one group, or a pair, which will put both groups in there. And that's how it also registers these collisions. Now, the testing portion for both the self collision and the pair collision is the exact same code minus the if the pointers are equal to each other that we had in the function pointer test. So we don't have to do that pointer equal test anymore because we're either setting a self collision or a pair collision. Now, you can, like I was doing earlier, forget to set self and have frigate to frigate with pair, which is what the group base was before we did all that, and run into all sorts of neat problems, which that's just big dumb on me. Now, the other thing that you wanted us to do is remove the stupid. The way that I had the stupid being removed is in the collision manager during the process collision events. The iterator that we are using to iterate through the list of collision processes, whether they are self or pair, I use that iterator to call an update on the collision object themselves. Now, this collision object essentially is a virtual void function from the base, the collision processor base. It's another virtual function, making another pure virtual function for the base class for the self and pair collisions. And what it does is it takes the iterator that we get passed in from the manager, iterates through the list of the object group and the objects in that group, the game object in that group, and then updates the sphere information. Now, the sphere information that we are using, I still have it in the collision object instead of pulling it out. I know I need to do that, but I'll talk to you about that later when I start talking about my research, or excuse me, the tank game stuff, that features that I need to add. So what I'm doing is I basically took out the code and I have variables inside my collision object for the world transform, the center, and the radius, and I update all of those based on the collision process event right here. So every frame, everything gets updated if it's a collision object, essentially. So even if it's not moving, it gets updated, which, again, I know that's dumb. Well, that's another dumb, so that's something else I would have to take a look at to see if I can optimize if I want to. Right now, I don't want to because I have a lot more other shit I need to fix. I think that is it for the code part. All right, so the research topics. I would like to do collision detection, physics, and game AI. Now, these three books that I am showing you are books that I already own. And I have nice little references from money that I spent already on these things. So I might as well use them in this engine that we're making because these are things that I'm interested in, which is why I own the books. So the real-time collision detection system is pretty neat. This book and this book are the two books that we use in the physics in the game physics that we took with Keenan, and so they're very useful. They're very detailed. This book in particular, the physics book, is basically creating a physics engine itself. So it goes through all the smaller steps as well as the big steps in actually creating an entire engine. But I've already combed through it, and I can pull out the kinematic stuff to help facilitate the simple physics that we can input into our engine. At least I'm hoping that that is what the case is. Right now, what I've used this book for, the collision detection book, is I've gone over AABBs and OBBs because it talks about them here and the best ways to calculate them so that it's the most efficient. I didn't look yet to see if they had the hierarchical view stuff that you were talking about on Tuesday, so that's something that I have to comb through this book a little bit further to check that, and I'm getting up to that 7 minute point again, so I need to speak faster. Last but not least, Max talked about AI and the and the state machine system, and I've recently gone through and using Unity. They have a state machine manager essentially for animations, so that you can the Unity user can basically get an animation and put it in a state and then change the states based on a variable or an enter and exit trigger mechanism that it's very simple and neat. What I would like to use that Unity system for is essentially create an AI state machine controller for our engine with essentially the exact same sort of user input variable to change between states, which again, the variables and the state and the functions for each state would be user written, but the controller itself for the state machine to have the functionality to change between each state based on the variable is a system I was thinking about like wanting to add. I don't know how complicated that would be, but that was just where my mind was going. And yeah, 7 minutes. Shit. Sorry. I will talk to you tomorrow. Again, I apologize. Really long.